Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall.
Boys and girls, prepare to be astounded, bedazzled, and otherwise stupefied.
John has a long mustache.
You are now listening to Peace Propaganda.
And we're here for you.
Peace Propaganda coming at ya. This is November 2nd, 2014, and I am your host, Adam Elpo. Thank you for tuning in to episode 32. It's been a while since I've done an episode of Peace Propaganda, so I hope that it hasn't offended you too much. But, as you know, if you've been listening to the show for a while, it's tough to get the episodes out every week, but I really appreciate you tuning in. So I'm going to get right into it. First things first, I want to let you know that I am working on a special. Yes, a fully produced, scripted, I'll just come out and say it. It's going to be a special about music that has defined the world. Specifically, a few albums that I feel have defined the world over the past 50 or so years. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope to have it out probably next weekend. The weekend of November the 9th. So look for that. Should be a lot of fun. I'm still playing with the time frame, probably about 40 to 45 minutes long. So we'll see. Anyways, as I said, this is episode 32. And I got, I'm not going to be talking much about, anarchism or libertarianism per se in this episode. Which I'm sure will be a delight to some people, and, well, I hope you enjoy it. I don't want to be, a one-trick pony on the show. So, I'm going to jump right into it. The top story for this episode I have here from The Intercept. Firstlook.org/The Intercept. If you're not familiar, this is Glenn Greenewald's blog. Glenn Greenewald, of course, being the person who helped Edward Snowden publish all of the leaks that he had to publish. And so this is kind of a disturbing story, and it sort of gets more and more disturbing as the article goes on. So let me dive right into it. The title of the article is "Secret Manuals Show the Spyware Sold to Despots and Cops Worldwide." And this article was published October 30th, 2014. So just a couple days old as of the production of this show. And as you might imagine from the title, secret manuals show the spyware sold to despots and cops worldwide. It's not good. Yeah, it's not good. This article comes to us from Cora Courier and Morgan Marquis-Bura. And they write that, they get right into it. If you've been following the news at all, then you know that the FBI director James Comey was going on and on about the impact of the new encryptions put in place by Apple and Google on their devices. He said, quote, "Criminals and terrorists would like nothing more than encryption." And he just made so much political hay about this, about how we're not going to be able to catch terrorists and the world is just going to crumble, et cetera, et cetera. Never let any good catastrophe go to waste, as they say. So this article shows that that's a bunch of hooey. It's nothing but bullshit. To say the least, actually. So they get into it here. It's these manuals from an Italian firm called Hacking Team. Yes, Hacking Team is actually the name of their company. And Hacking Team they give hackers a bad name. They should really be Cracking Team or Attacking Team, as Steve Gibson from Security Now likes to say. But hackers are not bad guys. But Hacking Team, the Italian company, these are bad guys. They sell what they call remote control systems. And what they do, it's software that can, they claim, defeat encryption. So here, I'm going to read from the story here. They say, the manuals describe hacking teams' software for government technicians and analysts, showing how it can activate cameras, exfiltrate emails, record Skype calls, log typing, and collect passwords on targeted devices. They also catalog a range of pre-bottle techniques for infecting those devices using Wi-Fi networks, USB sticks, streaming video, and email attachments to deliver viral installers with a few clicks of a mouse. Even a lightly trained technician can build a software agent that can infect and monitor a device, then upload captured data at unobtrusive times using stealthy networks of proxy servers, all without leaving a trace. Wow. Did you catch that? That they don't need to get to your device. They don't need to get past your encryption on your device. They can infect you via streaming video or on your Wi-Fi network. So in other words, they can infect once. All it takes is one field agent to go around cafes in New York or Chicago with this malicious software, infecting the routers at Starbucks, at McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, all these places. Real easy stuff to infect these routers because they respond to any packet call. Okay, so these routers are just asking to get infected. And then anybody who connects to it is now infected with hacking team's software. This is not a targeted system. This is something that can be turned on by a FISA court say-so from a national security letter. Yeah, those national security letters. Okay. So here, the CEO says, we sell remote control system and institutions in more than 40 countries on 5 continents, he told an Italian magazine. Quote, all of Europe, but also the Middle East, Asia, United States of America. So just in case you were wondering, oh, maybe this is only happening in remote parts of the world. Nope. If you live somewhere in all of Europe, Middle East, Asia, or America, United States of America, yeah, it's happening. It's happening. And the interesting thing is, this is a company that specializes in they use the term less moneyed agencies. Okay, so this isn't even necessarily the cream of the crop. This is, the article says, this is for smaller national agencies or large cities. Yeah. So, and they actually say that it ranges from 200,000 to 1 million euros. Pricey, but not out of reach. That's right. And so this is not the creme de la creme. This is a market for smaller and mid-sized countries, or like I said, they say here, to the extent that hacking team has sold in the U.S., it would be to less well-resourced federal agencies or bigger local police teams. Oh, geez. So if you live in New York, Chicago, L.A., or probably even smaller places, their headquarters is in Annapolis, Maryland, or at least their U.S. headquarters. So, and unless you think, maybe you're not super tech savvy, maybe that's not really your thing. And I know some people, when they hear these stories, they think, well, I'm sure it's somehow written into the software. There's some sort of catch that it's not going to be used for the wrong thing. You'd like I don't know how it works, but I bet they've thought of that. It's not going to be used for authoritarian purposes. People do think this. I've read this, okay? And maybe some people in my audience think that. So let me disabuse you of that notion. Let me continue from the article. Quote, there's evidence that the company is not being particularly selective about to whom it sells. Of 21 suspected hacking team users tracked down by Citizen Lab, 9 had been given the lowest possible ranking, quote, authoritarian, unquote, in the Economist's 2012 Democracy Index. And 4 of those were singled out for particularly egregious abuses, torture, beatings and rapes in detention, lethal violence against protesters by Human Rights Watch. Yes, 9 of the 21 clients were listed as authoritarian in the Democracy Index and did things officially as part of government policy, such as torture, rape in detention, and lethal violence against protesters. So there you go. It is not part of the software that they're going to somehow skirt human rights issues with this. No, this is written for human rights abuses. Yes. And let me do one more quote here from the article before we go to break. The U.S. government has shown an interest in policing the improper use of packaged malware. The Justice Department just recently brought its first case against a spyware developer, arresting a Pakistani man who marketed Stealth Genie, an app that does some of the same things as hacking teams, except for individuals rather than governments. Announcing the charges against Stealth Genie's maker, an assistant attorney general called the spyware reprehensible, expressly designed for use by stalkers and domestic abusers who want to know every detail of a victim's personal life. So this is the assistant attorney general for the United States of America describing this software as something which somebody would use for the express purpose of stalking and domestic abuse to know every detail of a victim's life. And they're talking about software that does many of the same things, but not quite all of the same. It doesn't even go the full level of stuff that we're talking about. This is the light version. And they describe it as for stalkers and domestic abusers who want to know every detail of a victim's personal life. Insane. I mean, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth at every turn. It's crazy. Okay, well, we got the music coming up. I'll be right back with more from this article. Have you heard of the Electronic Frontier Foundation? The EFF is a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting your rights online. They fight illegal surveillance, advocate for users and innovators, and support freedom-enhancing technology. The state wants to limit what you can do online, including attacking whistleblowers, bloggers, and podcasters because it considers them to be non-journalists. Support the Electronic Frontier Foundation today with dollars or bitcoins by visiting EFF.org. That's EFF.org. Had to throw a little bit of Halloween music in there for you. That's the Horror Pops with Walk Like a Zombie. Fantastic song. Fantastic band, as a matter of fact. It's a psychobilly genre. If you're not familiar with that, it's a lot of fun. And that EFF ad is new. You may have noticed. That's the music behind that, by the way, is my cousin Matt Elpo's music, and that's off of his first album, The Jonah Complex. So you can find that on a Google search, Matt Elpo, The Jonah Complex. It's good songs. Anyways, I want to continue here with the Intercept article here about how secret manuals show the spyware sold to despots and cops worldwide. And so I'm not gonna do the whole article super in depth because we're actually getting into the part of the article called How It Works. And it's pretty technical. Some of it's definitely over my head. You know, like they really go into some of the code here and stuff that's just not super relevant to what we're talking about on the show today. But for your own edification, you may want to check it out. Again, that's on firstlook.org/theintercept, and I will have it in the show notes for you as well. If you're on SoundCloud, by the way, which is where this show is hosted, the show notes are now moved. You have to go to the top right of the page to find them if you're doing it on desktop. And if you're on mobile, Jesus, good luck. They keep changing the app, so it's kind of hard to get to the show notes. I'm not going to lie. But if you have like a third-party app that you subscribe to the RSS feed through, it's probably a little bit easier to see the show notes. Anyways, How It Works. This is taken. A lot of this stuff is lifted from the manuals that they provide to the clients. That hacking team, this Italian group of crackers, provides to their government clients. And it is, in their own words, designed to be simple for non-experts to use. The brochure boasts, quote, "You cannot stop your targets from moving. How can you keep chasing them? What you need is a way to bypass encryption, collect relevant data out of any device, and keep monitoring your targets wherever they are, even outside your monitoring domain. Remote control system does exactly that." What does outside your monitoring domain mean, I wonder? Outside your monitoring domain. I wonder if they mean extra legal monitoring, perhaps. Not that monitoring in a legal way is any better, at least not as far as I'm concerned, but I think people would be particularly bristly about that. So here they get into how it works step by step. The software can be installed physically via USB stick if the authorities have direct access to the computer, such as a police stop or an airport search. So, for example, a lot of people have reported that they've gone through an airport search and they've said, "Oh, well, we need to take a look at your cell phone, or we need to take a look at your laptop," and they disappear in a back room with it. And they come back and they say, "Okay, everything looks fine." Guess what they're doing? Yeah. Google bad USB. If you're not familiar with this, this is a known flaw with USB, where the firmware in USB, not to get too technical, but basically to make USB the universal serial bus that it is, it needs to be able to respond to a wide variety of prompts. And that means that security on such a device is extraordinarily difficult. And that means that it's very easy to install malware through the firmware located on any device that uses the USB protocol. So what that boils down to in lay speak is all they have to do is plug something into your cell phone. They don't need to bypass any of the protections that are in Apple, that are in Android, Windows Phone, BlackBerry, your laptop. None of that will protect you from this because it's in the USB firmware. It's being Trojan horsed through that. Okay. And so when they give you back your phone and everything looks fine in the airport, well, they may well have just plugged in something, put in the tiniest program that you would never even notice is there, that never shows up because it doesn't even run at the operating system level like Android or the iPhone mobile OS, but it's logging everything that your phone does or everything that your laptop does and is sending it to the NSA or the FBI or God knows who. Or, the article continues, the infection can happen remotely. It could take the form of a familiar phishing attack or email scam. Yes. And everybody knows about that. I mean, it's so ridiculously easy for them to do a man-in-the-middle attack. You think you're going to some website, and they actually just recently determined that it's a common practice by federal agencies to basically do a man-in-the-middle attack, and then after they have successfully phished your data or installed malware on your machine, then they'll redirect you back to the original site that you wanted to go to, so you don't even ever notice that you've been brought to the wrong site. It's not like you're poking around and things just don't seem right. It's like almost instant, especially if you have a fast connection. It's like boom, boom, boom. You're getting bounced around. You might take a sip of your coffee and it's already done. It's already done. So how do you protect yourself from that? Well, if you listen to Security Now, Steve Gibson would tell you that there pretty much is no way to protect yourself from something like that. If you want total security from something along these lines, you pretty much just need to get off the grid. Now, am I advocating getting off the grid? No, of course not. I mean, you need to do what's best for you. If getting off the grid, let me put it this way. If you are doing something that is so, let's put it this way, that a government would be so hostile to that you require the utmost security in your communications, yes, you need to get rid of your electronics devices. You need to turn off this podcast, and you need to take the battery out of all of your electronic devices and destroy them. Print out anything that you need. Write it down. Ideally, write it down in a cipher. That's still the gold standard. Other than that, you pretty much just have to keep yourself out of the gazing eye of Sauron. Because once his eye is upon you, once the NSA has you in their gaze, it's game over. Because it's so easy. It's so easy. Especially if you have a modern device that's constantly connecting to a million different wireless networks. Holy cow, it would be so easy. You know, you might walk past a department store. Oh, their router pings you. It gets your MAC address, and by the way, it installed NSA spyware device. And the hardware store, the clothing store, whatever I said, they don't even know. It's not like the NSA came in and said, "Hey, do you mind if we use your router for this?" Hell no. Hell no. I think a lot of people have it in their head that is how things like this go about happening. You know, like there's all of these safeguards in place. Like, well, there's somebody at the NSA like, oh, geez, I don't know. This seems like it might be violating someone's rights. No. They can literally drive through downtown. Oh, here's a wireless signal. Let's infect that. 5 seconds later, they drive not even to the next street. They just drive a couple storefronts down. Oh, here's another wireless signal. Let's get that one. They could blanket a city in a month with this stuff. And how often do these places, check the firmware on their routers? Holy cow. When's the last time you checked the firmware on your router? They don't care. They just want to be able to put up a sign that says free Wi-Fi access. They don't care. And even if they did check the firmware on the router, it probably wouldn't even show up. They would have to replace their router. And geez, how often does that happen? I bet a lot of these places are still using routers that they bought in the late 90s. Maybe not early 2000s. Let's go with that. Right. So it doesn't look good for that. Okay, well, I don't want to leave on a total downer note. I do have some good news. After the break. So stay tuned. I'll be right back with more from Peace Propaganda.
I want to take this opportunity to tell you about Sean's Outpost, a homeless outreach program which has provided over 20,000 meals to the homeless in Northwest Florida. They're also funded entirely through Bitcoin donations. They are proving that we can address the problems in our community without the state, without its predatory welfare programs, and without its Ponzi money. Recently, Sean's Outpost launched its newest, boldest initiative, Satoshi Forest, a 9-acre homeless sanctuary where they are teaching permaculture, aquaponics, and self-sufficiency to the homeless residents. No one sticks a gun in anyone's face and makes them donate to Sean's Outpost, and yet, every day, people do. Please consider donating to this inspiring cause. Visit Sean'sOutpost.com. That's SEANS Outpost.com.
I love that song. That is Big Data performing their song called Dangerous. If you haven't heard this song, give it a listen, because it is all about wiretapping. It's all about NSA surveillance, DCHQ surveillance. Yes. If you don't believe me, read the lyrics. I mean, it's right there. It's let's see. Gotta shut this down because they've been watching all my windows. That's a reference to Microsoft Windows. They gathered up the warrant because you understand, they got a plan for us. I know some people think like it takes out the magic if you just read the lyrics. I love it. I think it's a fucking fantastic song. And if you read it, to take me to the court because they know, it's all in there. It's all in there. And it's just brilliant. You know why? Because it's a hit song and people are loving this song. And so many people don't even know that it's about NSA surveillance, which I guess is a double-edged sword. Maybe if they knew, they wouldn't like it as much. But I have to think that on the margins, there are some people who are like, hey, what's this song about? And they go and they read it. And, that's just another way to get people on board, right? To get them at least thinking about this stuff. Anyways, I promised good news. And good news I shall deliver. Yes. So we've been talking about sort of the, let's say, somewhat of the futility of escaping NSA surveillance. But as it happens, on the Intercept website, yes, I've been looking at that a lot, by the way. If you haven't been on the Intercept website, I think it's time to start checking it out. It kind of had a rocky start. Not a lot on there for a while, but now they've really got some top-notch stuff, including people that, in addition to Glenn Greenwald, people who were in direct contact with Edward Snowden, including Micah Lee. Micah Lee, if you're not familiar, was one of the first people that Edward Snowden contacted when he had decided to come and, I don't know what you would say, leak the information. So the title of the article is Ed Snowden Taught Me How to Smuggle Secrets Past Incredible Danger. Now I Teach You. And this was published on Tuesday, October 28th, 2014. And it talks all about, it's kind of, I'll be honest, the beginning of it's kind of to put it in the nicest possible terms, he's trying to establish his bona fides. In less beneficial terms, it's him basically just kind of dropping names and talking about how awesome he is. So it's kind of it's a little heavy-handed with him talking about like how good he is at privacy, but I get it. He wants to show that he knows what he's talking about. So we'll breeze past that. And he talks about how he and Edward Snowden and the Glenn Greenwald, as well as Laura Poitras, were all communicating. Laura Poitras, by the way, is the director of the new movie Citizen 4. If you haven't heard of this, Citizen 4 is the movie all about Edward Snowden. And when Edward Snowden contacted Laura Poitras, the director of this movie, but also a very well-respected journalist in the tech world. And she has many years of, I guess, security-minded ethics under her belt. So definitely a top name. Anyways, let's get into the meat of the article. I don't want this episode to run too much longer. So here we go. Basically, the gist of the article, I don't want to bury the lead here. The gist of the article is encryption works. And that's a kind of a quote from Edward Snowden when he said, what is it? Let me bring it up here. Oh, yes. Encryption works. Properly implemented strong crypto systems are one of the few things that you can rely on. Unfortunately, and this is what we were just talking about. This is me talking, but back to the article. Quote, unfortunately, endpoint security is so terrifically weak that NSA can frequently find ways around it. And that's what we were just talking about. So yeah, you can, if you are sure that you are on an airtight machine, and I mean airtight almost literally, we're talking about, over-the-air transmissions. If you're on an airtight machine making an encrypted communication, and then you're sending it to someone with an airtight endpoint, okay, you can reliably communicate over the internet. The problem is, how do you know? How do you know? Even if you know that your machine is good, you might be sending it to someone's machine that is less good. Let's put it that way. And if that is the case, even if you're doing it 100% right, there could be markers in the data that you've sent that reveal you. So back to the article, it talks about how when he first tried to contact. Now this is important for anybody who's trying to do anything securely online. So this is a valuable tip. When he tried to contact Laura Poitras, he needed to find her GPG key. This is encryption. I can't get into it entirely if you're not familiar with it, but just look up PGP, GPG. Either term will get you a Google result. And it's basically encryption. But you need the other person's key for it to work, so they can decrypt it when you send it along, right? But the problem is, even after he got her key, which itself was an ordeal, because asking for a key, in an unencrypted message may well be enough for them to tap your device and the other person's device. So you got to get it in such a way that it's not obvious. But even after they got it, he basically said, I'm not sure that I'm even going to be sending it to the right person, because what if it's just an NSA agent on the other side pretending to be Laura? Okay, and he's not paranoid. This is Edward Snowden, an NSA analyst. He knows that it might have been an NSA agent on the other side because he may have done exactly that in the past. Okay? So this is the kind of stuff that does happen. So what did he do? Well, he wanted her to use her verified Twitter account to tweet the fingerprint to her GPG key. Now, this is getting a little technical, so let me just boil it down for the less technical members of my audience. I don't want to lose anybody here. Basically, what he's saying is, what if I'm sending it to somebody who's pretending to be an NSA agent? Well, there's no ironclad way of knowing that I'm not. But a good indication that I'm not would be maybe they haven't gotten access to the Twitter account. Maybe they've tapped into it, or they're pretending to be for email purposes, but maybe they don't have the Twitter account. It's a second factor of authentication. So he said, hey, tweet this stuff, and if you do, then good enough, I'll just have to go with that. And so that ended up being what happened. And you could actually still see the tweet online, this verification tweet that it wasn't Laura Poitras, it was a middleman. The story is convoluted. I'm just trying to boil it down to the essential security tips here. And the essential security tip is, don't just rely on one point of authentication. So if somebody says, if you're trying to communicate with somebody and you're like, okay, I'm going to send you this encrypted email. Are you ready? And they say, oh yeah, I'm ready. That might not be enough. If what you're doing is that important, find another way for that person to verify that they have control over the mechanism which you will be communicating to them. Okay, so if you're going to be sending them an email, have them tweet something. Ideally, have them tweet something that's encrypted in the email, through the email address that you're sending them. Okay, so they have to have access and control of this email address just to tweet the message that you want them to tweet. That's very good. That is pro level stuff, as you would expect from somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about. Okay, I'm gonna put the link to this in the show notes. This is important stuff. And there's more in this article. Believe it or not, it actually gets more complicated from there, other than one small tip, Tails. Tails is a secure operating system. It's Linux-based, and it is bundled with Tor. That's the onion routing. If you're not familiar with that, You're going to have to Google it, but because it's complicated. But Tails is basically an operating system that you can put on a USB stick, and you can bring it to any computer. Even if you don't have access to the operating system on the computer, you can run the computer just with the USB stick. And it uses the best known open source security protocols, security systems available today. It's regularly updated. It's the best we got. It has Tor, GPG, and OTR. This is off the record communication software. That's it. That's as good as it gets as far as the hardware. And then when you're on Tails, then that's what you want to do, this double authentication stuff that I'm talking about with the GPG keys, with the tweeting. That's the state of things, okay? They are spending billions to track what people are doing online. The reality is, if you want any chance of escaping that, these are the links that you have to go to. And so that's it for the article. That's all I want to say about the article. I will link it in the show notes. Again, it's on The Intercept, but I have something to add. Just this is Adam. This is Peace Propaganda adding this. Be careful with what you do, even if it's not something that might otherwise raise you to the level of direct NSA surveillance. So, for example, you might have something that does rise to the level of NSA surveillance, right? Okay, you might be doing something, and I'm not saying it's wrong. There's a lot of good reasons you might be doing stuff like this, but you might be doing something that the government has a very serious interest in, okay? And you might be doing it perfectly. But you might also be doing something less perfectly because you think it doesn't rise to that level. So you might be communicating NSA documents, for example, to a journalist perfectly. But you might also be downloading Iron Man on the Pirate Bay. All right, so if you're already a security professional, you know what's wrong with this. But maybe you're on the margins here and you don't know what's wrong with this. You don't want to get, like I said before, you do not want their eyes upon you. Because say you're downloading Iron Man on the Pirate Bay and you're not doing it perfectly, well, now they're looking at you, okay? Now they're building a case. Now they're watching your computer. Now, maybe your end node wasn't compromised before, but now they're going to put this hacker software from the previous two segments of the show, this Italian software, on your machine. Well, now you're fucked because it's got a keylogger on it, okay? And everything that you're doing that's encrypted doesn't matter because they're going to be transmitting it to their servers unencrypted, or at least in an encryption that they can break. And then it's game over. Because you downloaded Iron Man, now your communications to Glenn Greenwald or Laura Poitras are in the hands of the NSA or the FBI or God knows who. And this applies if you're using the Silk Road, for sure. If you're using the Silk Road, be careful. Or if you're just working on any project that could be sensitive, okay? So I hope that was useful. Bit of a tech-heavy show. I hope you liked it. Email me, of course, at the show at host.peacepropaganda@gmail.com. Let me know what you thought of the show. And look forward to the special that I'm doing. Because I'm actually mostly done with it. But like I said, this is going to be fully scripted. This is like, it's a production, right? It's not just me behind the microphone, with some articles that I want to read to you. Although I do love doing these shows, I'm trying something a little bit different. Okay, it's a little bit different. This is a production. This is a bit more entertainment value. Almost like a mini documentary about music, because this is a passion of mine, music, in case you can't tell. Every time I come out of the break, I'm talking about how much I love the music I just played. So I think you'll see a different side of the host here of Peace Propaganda. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and of course it's going to fit the theme of the show. So there you go. I hope to have it out by next week. And that does it for Sunday, November 2nd, 2014. Have a great week.
This